Today I'm going to talk to you guys about the Abbott point of care iStat machines. So these machines can run a variety of what are called point of care tests or POC tests. So today I'm just going to show you guys how to do quality control testing or QC testing on two different types of cartridges. So these ones are the iStat CG8 Plus. And with these, you get a blood gas and then some electrolytes. And so you can see on there, they do pH, PCO2, PO2, sodium, potassium, ionized calcium, glucose, hematocrit, bicarbonate, your TCO2, your base excess or deficit, your SPO2, and then hemoglobin as well. The other cartridges that I'm going to QC today are the iStat ACT, so that's activated clotting time, and then because it's a C, the clotting agent in here is called Zeolite. So these are QC'd using these little ampules. These are little control vials. So the blood gas cartridges, there are 3 different levels that need to be done, which is why I have 3 cartridges out here. So we have level 1, 2, and 3, and each have slightly different results, just to test to make sure that the cartridges can do a range, meet the range. And then over here we have the ACTs. They have 2 different levels. So you have your normal ACT, which is usually anywhere from 90 to 150 on a patient, and then you have your abnormal here, which is usually above 400 seconds. I have my 2 iStat machines, which I've already calibrated, and then I have my supplies that I'm going to need to actually put the samples into the cartridges. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I am going to grab my iStat and I'm going to turn it on. So hit the power button, it starts coming on right there. And so this one says that it needs to be uploaded. So I'm just going to hit the 1 to continue. And so now what I want to do is I want to go to the menu. And so a menu list will come up, and I want to go to number 3, quality tests. So we're going to go to number 3. And then I'm going to do some controls. So I want number 1. I'll hit number 1. And then I'm going to need to scan my badge from the hospital that I work at. So scan or enter the operator ID. I'm going to go ahead and do that by hitting the scan button here. So I've scanned my operator ID. And then I need to select the fluid vendor that I'm going to be using. So my choices are APOC, which stands for Abbott Point of Care. And then my other option is non-APOC, which is not Abbott Point of Care. So the controls that I'm using today, they are, let's see if we can get that in focus. Difficult, but these are manufactured by Abbott. I know that because this is the hospital that I work at. Each hospital will be different in their methodology on how they do their control testing. So you definitely want to make sure that you're following your hospital's policy. So mine, I'm going to hit number 1. And so now it wants me to select the fluid level. And so the fluid level that I'm going to be doing, you can go in any order, but I always just like to start with number 1. So I'm going to select number 1. And now it wants me to scan the control lot number. So I'm going to go ahead and do that by hitting the scan button and then scanning the barcode on the lot. You always want to check and make sure that your lot is not expired. This one expires 8/31 of 2021, so we're good there. I'll scan my lot number. Oh, no, okay. So, unfortunately, this one's just telling me that it's not in the system, which is kind of weird, but we will work that out. Okay, problem solved. So now it is asking me to scan my cartridge lot number. So I'm just going to take one of my cartridges, scan the barcode on here. Great. And then now I am going to open my cartridge gently remove it from the package. So with these, you want to be careful. You don't want to actually press down on the middle of this because that's where the testing is done. And so if you smush the middle, you can actually damage the cartridge and then it will not run the test. So then I'm going to get my syringe ready. I'm going to open one of these up. You can see me fumble with this. Ay, ay, ay. So I'll get that ready, and then I'll get my needle ready. I'm just going to attach that to my syringe. I'm just using a 3 cc syringe because there's no need to use a bigger one. Okay, and then really quick, I'm going to be running dual controls because we have another lot that we want to use. So I'm going to quickly turn this one on and do the exact same thing where I'm going to go to menu, 3, 1. So now I'm at my operator ID, scan my badge. We're doing point of care fluid, so that's number 1. I'm still going to do level 1. And then I'm going to scan my control lot number. Great, she came up. And then I'm going to grab this other cartridge here because these are 2 different lots. So this lot here is W20277 and this lot here is W20279A. So I don't want to waste this QC, so I'm going to do these controls at the same time. Big thing, I just want to make sure I don't mix up which cartridge is going with which iStat. So I have my things set up so that I can easily do them at the same time. So now I'm going to tap my vial. This is a glass vial. I don't want any of the fluid in the cap here. I'm going to break the cap off, and then using my needle and syringe, I'm going to draw up just enough fluid to inoculate these cartridges. So then I'm going to take my cartridge and fill it to the point that it shows on here, so right to this tip here. And then I'm going to take the tab here and fold it over until it clicks, and then I'm going to insert it into my instrument here. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. Inoculate my cartridge. Great. Click it slowly, holding down on the sides, not pressing down on the middle. And then I'm going to insert this one into this cartridge here. And so now what the iStats are doing, I'm going to cap my needle so that I don't stab myself. Put my used stuff off to the side. So now what these iStats are doing is they're identifying the cartridges. So I don't need to enter anything into this field 1, so I'm just going to page over. Page over, great, and now it is going to run the control for me. The iStats take about 120 seconds to run their blood gases, and so in that time, I don't want to remove the cartridge because that'll ruin the testing. And then if you look here on the screen, it says that the cartridge is locked, so even if I tried to pull it out, I wouldn't be able to. And if I really tried really hard, potentially I could, but I would damage the instrument, and we don't want to do that. So now you wait your 120 seconds and hope they say pass. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to repeat this same procedure that I've shown you for these 4 other cartridges so that I can test them as well. Point of care testing, typically you do it at least once a month, or point of care control testing, you do it at least once a month on your machines. It depends on your hospital policy though. And then every time you get a new lot number, you want to make sure that you are testing that lot to make sure that it is running the test appropriately. Because in the end, you're going to use these for patient care, and so you want to make sure that you're giving your doctor the appropriate results so that the patient can be treated properly. These tests are really good for quick analysis of how the patient's doing. Because this, again, like I said, it takes 120 seconds to run a test versus sending a sample down to the lab, which can take up to 15 minutes. And sometimes in 15 minutes, the patient's entire hemodynamic profile could shift. So that's why these are really awesome and important, and you want to make sure you take care of them. In my next video, I will show you how to do the ACT controls. And so now you can see up here, it says that this control passed, which is perfect. And so you can see here where it gives you your pH, your PCO2, your PO2, base excess or deficit, bicarbonate level, your TCO2, saturation of oxygen. On the next page, it's going to show you your sodium, potassium, ionized calcium, glucose, hematocrit, and hemoglobin. And so then this one also passed, yay! And so this one, it gives you the same numbers. They should be relatively close since these are the same lot, but there is a range that these values are allowed to be in. So that's why they're slightly different, just by a little bit. You can see that they're just slightly off, but that's okay because they are within the range that is appropriate for this control number. So while my iStat CG8 Plus cartridges are finishing up with their final and third level of QC, I'm going to quickly talk about the ACT ones. So the ACTs, or activated clotting time, are a little different than the blood gas controls. So they come what's called lyophilized or powderized form. So this is just like dried up substance, and then I have a special diluent. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to mix these together following a proper procedure so that the sample doesn't clot too quickly or too slowly. So you want to make sure that you are using the matching dried sample with the appropriate lot diluent. So I have my 1 and 1 and then my 2 and 2. So these take about 1.5 minutes to mix together. And the procedure that I'm going to be using is I am going to dump the liquid portion into the solid portion, let it sit for 30 seconds, and I'll set a timer for that. Once that 30 seconds is up, I'm going to gently shake like this, the sample, and then I'll do that for 30 seconds. And when that 30 seconds is up, then I am going to gently invert the sample for 30 seconds. Once that time is up, the sample is appropriately reconstituted, and then I can inoculate my cartridge. So all of our iStat blood gas cartridges passed. That is great news. So we're going to move on to the ACTs. So the procedure for running the controls for the ACTs is the same as the blood gases. I went to my menu, and then I want to go to quality tests, which is number 3, and then we are going to be running controls. So I want number 1, and then I want to scan my operator ID, which is my badge over here, and then my operator ID again on this one, which is my badge over here. And then again, we are still using an Abbott point of care control. So Abbott is a point of care, they're a laboratory company, they make a lot of laboratory equipment, and so we are using their licensed controls. So I'm going to click number 1 again, number 1, and then for this one, I'm going to run these at the same time for convenience reasons. And so for this machine, I'm going to do level 1, and then for this machine, I'm going to select level 2. So now I'm going to separate my lots so that I can scan them appropriately. It does not matter which barcode I scan of the pair, so long as I scan the correct one. So over here, I'm doing number 1, so I'll scan that lot. And then over here, I'm doing number 2, so we'll scan that one, perfect. And now I'm going to scan my cartridge lot numbers. So scan there, And I'll do the same thing with this one. These lots are both the same. So you can see they're both 243, 243. So now I'm gonna start working on my controls here. So I'm gonna open this up gently. This is metal and it can be kind of sharp. So I'm just gonna gently peel away that. I'm going to keep this lid because I want it. And so now, since I'm gonna do these at the same time, I just wanna make sure that I'm prepared to dump them in together. So keep that lid. Perfect. So I'm gonna pull up my timer. We'll put it on 1 minute, but I know that I'm only gonna do it for 30 seconds. So now I'm gonna dump these in, just like that. Put those to the back and then replace the caps. So now I'm gonna wait 30 seconds while those just sit there. Okay, so now I'm going to gently invert them for 30 seconds. Or, sorry, swirl them 30 seconds, geez. Despite my minor mistake, it shouldn't severely impact the results of the test. So here we go. Swirling 30 seconds. And this is just so that the powder in there gets fully dissolved. So now that our 30 seconds has passed, we will switch to inverting gently for another 30 seconds. All right, 5 seconds, we're almost done. Great. So now I'm going to open my lot. Again, same thing, I want to be careful. I don't want to crush the middle of the cartridge. I'm going to use a syringe again to pull up my sample, like so. Don't really need a lot. Then I'm going to inoculate my cartridge. This part's kind of tough because there's just so little in there. You can barely see it. There we go. So we are inoculated there. So this was level 1, which was my iStat on the left here. So we'll insert that into that one, and then we'll quickly do number 2. You want to keep your timing good because potentially the iStat can time out on you, which is why I'm working fairly quickly. So we'll draw up number 2. We will inoculate our cartridge, making sure we can see the control. Perfect. So again, holding it on the sides, pressing down on the tab, and then we insert into there. And again, I don't need to place anything in this field, so I can scroll past it. And with the ACTs, it does need to heat the cartridge, so that's what it's doing now. It's going to do the same thing over here. So ideally, this one will take anywhere from 110 seconds to 100 and we'll say about 75 seconds. This one should take significantly longer, as this is the abnormal control. So this one, I really want to see it take over 400 seconds. And these time ranges are determined by Abbott based on the control lot number that I'm using. So hopefully these also pass. In the essence of time, I'm going to pause it so that you don't have to listen to it just work. And I will return once they are done. So now it's mixing the reagent and doing the test. So we'll check back soon. So So now this one, the test is officially in progress, and currently it's saying that our clotting time is greater than 20 seconds. These machines do not give a real-time clotting time. They just kind of give you a general idea. There are other point-of-care instruments that will actually give you very detailed clotting information. Typically, you'd use this test for when you are going to heparinize your patient. So you will use these if you do cardiac or if you're doing big vascular cases. Those are usually the instances in which you will run an activated clotting time. Potentially in liver transplants as well, you would use this, though you would also potentially use a machine called a thromboelastogram or a TEG. Those give you a detailed picture of how clots form. We'll talk about those near the end of the semester. There's a big graph associated with the way that clots form and get broken down. They're very complicated tests to run, and I believe the only place in the area that does run them is St. Luke's. So if you go there, you will learn how to run TEGs. Okay, so our normal control seemed a little high, but thankfully it still was within the appropriate range, so it did pass, which is good news because I don't want to have to run these again. And then our abnormal is still running, which is also a good sign because that should take longer than this one. So I'll check back in a little bit to make sure that this one passed too. And then when you're done running controls, all you have to do is you just remove the cartridge, and these can go in the trash since they aren't, none of this is actual blood products. If you were using actual blood to run these tests on a patient, you'd potentially want to put that in a biohazard bin. It's a very small amount of blood in there, but again, that just depends on your hospital policy. All right, our last iStat passed, so that is great news. So there it says pass. So now all of those lot numbers and cartridges that we QC'd, they are all ready to go and be used for actual patient testing. There is one final step. I will need to do what's called downloading these iStats. So I will take these to another room, restart the video, and show you how they're downloaded. All right, so here is what is called a downloading base. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the iStat, which has a communicator right here, right in front of this eye here. And then what it's going to do is, sometimes it takes a second, once it finally realizes that it's hooked up. There we go. So now it is communicating with our laboratory system, and this will let the lab know that all of our lot numbers are QC'd and ready to be used. Because all of this stuff does get audited by an accrediting body, and so that's why we want to make sure this is done so that we can continue to do point of care testing upstairs, as it is very good for patients.